I wrote a book, then it would help increase my thought leadership. That's it. Like it's a pawn, right? And yeah, I made a couple $100 from selling the book. And in fact, it cost me a few hundred more to publish the book, even self-publish on Amazon. You need a formatter, you need this, you need that, right? But it massively changed the trajectory of everything in my life. I had decided to write this book. I didn't anybody grow up deciding they wanted to write a book, because I didn't. Like raffle. Okay, I love it. Okay, Jen, maybe. Right. Literally, so I invested in some coaching end of 2022. February of 2023, I was like, I'm gonna write a book. I invested in my mentors in a book camp that they had, a 3-day intensive. I took PTO, I flew to Dallas, Texas, and I learned the framework and the strategies of how to write a best-selling book. Okay, it's everything in life I found is a framework. And if you can master the framework, you can replicate anything. You can reinvent yourself when you get let go from your job. Okay. And so the concept was write a book in 3 months. I'm the only person out of 25 who literally wrote that book in 3 months, but several people since have released their books. It became kind of like a personal challenge to me. So March 1st, my birthday, I started writing this book and literally released the book on Memorial Day. By the way, don't release a book on a public holiday. I did it anyway, and I did it for good reason, and I knew what I was doing, and it worked, right? But March to May, I wrote this book. In the middle of all of that, I got let go from my job. And I literally had a decision to be, I'm staring at my CEO, my head of HR, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I have a family, I have a mortgage. They gave me.
I didn't get that. Could you?
Oh, Siri. I had 2 weeks. They gave me 2 weeks pay for 4 years. I'm like, the carpet had been ripped out from under me. I had to lean into my superhero strengths. And this comes to my first worksheet. I've just shared it in the chat. Okay, so you guys, what you want to do if you've never been to one of my master classes is in the top left, you go file, make a copy. I see you all in here. You won't be able to edit it, but just make a copy and then you can edit it. Okay. It's all about leaning into your superhero strengths. So as she was introducing me, yeah, companies now pay me big bucks to come on stage and talk about this stuff, right? Because when I was an entrepreneur in between losing my job and deciding to, work at Language Network, and I'm going to talk about that and why, and like our ego and everything. But we all have today, no matter if we've been a translator or a salesperson or a business owner for a day, a year, a decade, or longer, we all have inherent superhero strengths. What makes you you, right? I'm a people connector. I love driving innovation in a sales or business world. I love driving innovation. So I want you to think about, it's like your assessments and your reflection and your strengths exploration. Okay. This worksheet is meant to guide you. When I stand up on stages or companies bring me in to consult a team, I do this activity in an environment. So I want to challenge you now to share in the chat what your superhero strength might be. Because if you take this activity back to your team or back to people that you collaborate with, your cross-functional peers, or in a community like this where you might be meeting regularly, if you share your superhero strengths with one another, then you learn you can lean on one another for help and guidance in areas that you might not be strongest, right? So again, to start you off, my superhero strengths is people connector. Like I love being like, oh, I was talking to somebody the other day. Do you know Marina? You should talk to Marina, right? Oh, do you know Sultan? You should talk to Sultan. I love putting people together. I think Jen knows that very well. I am a superhero, effective communication. I love it. Yes. People connector for me too. Whatever it is, my super prototype. Yes, Jen. Resourcefulness. Yes. So share your superhero strengths in the chat. And if you're part of a company, if you own your own business, if you have colleagues, whether they're direct reports or peers, I encourage you to take the concept of superhero strengths back to work. Then when things happen for you that feel pretty bad in the moment, like April 17th, 2023, and you get let go from your job completely unexpectedly, now you can lean in to your superhero strengths. Because as humans, we seek comfort, okay? And comfort might mean curling up with a, like, when you hear comfort, what do you think? I always tell people what they think, but thanks for all of this interaction now in the chat. Tell me, when you hear the word comfort, what do you think of? A tea, some coffee, a blanket, a bed, a couch, cookies, TV shows, quiet. I love it. Say in the chat what you think of comfort. And I'll tell you mine is like a box of Oreos, no shame in my game. Or like, I don't know, yes, like quiet, yes, peace, time away, spinning yarn. I love that. Tea, yes. What else? I see tea, blanket, good book, peaceful garden. Okay, so many of us, when we seek comfort, we seek these things, which are excellent human needs, right? What if you sought comfort in action? One thing I'm really good at doing is inspiring audiences with actionable strategies to seek comfort in action. So on April 17th, 2023, when I hung up the Zoom call 10 minutes into after getting fired, and I'm texting like my husband and my friend, I'm like, I don't even know, you've been there, you're having this out of body experience. It does not feel good, right? And I chose to seek comfort in action. And that is how I turned what happened to me into what happened for me, because I leaned into my superhero strengths, right? The irony is I don't want to be on big stages talking about sales. Like, it just happens to be one of my strengths, because as you heard, I started in the industry in 2005 as an experimental inside salesperson, and I started just to climb the corporate ladder in this capacity. But I feel like there's something bigger out there, inspiring audiences for impact, right? And other things that come from that. But I leaned into this. I leaned into finishing my book, and I leaned into my strengths, and I started reaching out to potential prospects and people in our community to have conversations. And I went from April 17th at 10 a.m., the day when I hung up the phone with my HR, to literally probably having 200 phone calls in the span of 48 hours. I never stopped moving. And do you know what happens? What is the saying? Something in motion tends to stay in motion, right? So it created this massive amount of momentum and a snowball effect in order to get out of my own way and seek comfort in those other things later, and to really lean into my superhero strengths. Okay, so we can keep going, but Marina, any thoughts? I love all of the interactions. Stefan, welcome.
Oh my gosh, yes, thanks. Hi, Stefan. Hey, everybody. Yeah, this is wonderful. So, Kristin, I love this inertia fighting idea, and I think everybody's going to really warm to that idea. When you get laid off, it's a slap in the face. It really hurts. Physically, you feel it, and all of your fears come up. Oh, yeah. And I know of people very close to me just got this terrible thing happening. All of us are so close. So I love the idea of keep moving, keep going. Those who have come in late, please check the chat, because Kristin has posted her worksheet, which has some really great ideas for just taking a look at what your superpower is. So keep going, Kristin. I think you've got 100% alignment in our audience.
Again, is right. We're constantly coming back to the main theme: reinvent yourself. What do you do in this case when things happen to you? How do you turn that into things happen for us? We identify. We have self-identified now our superhero strengths. We have that worksheet. You're going to share it with your colleagues or other people you collaborate with. And then I would ask your colleagues or peers to tell you what they think your strengths are also, because we're blinded by some of our goodness. Like we don't think that something is our strength because it comes so naturally to us. And that's when we really identify that, like, oh wow, like people connecting is my strength. I just thought that everybody did it, right? So ask your peers, also people like this that we're collaborating with, what your strengths are. Then we're going to move on to the why that makes you cry. And so has anybody ever done like what's your why activity? Depending on the circles you run in, it's common. I was yeah, so I first heard about this in like 2012, and yeah, a few years after I graduated college. Is like, what's your why? And I always remember like I was still so young then, and I didn't have a mortgage, and I didn't have kids, and I didn't have this, and I didn't have that. And I always, it was really hard for me to do this activity, but I've never walked away from it. I constantly come back because as we're humans and we evolve, right? It's important that we kind of redo some of these activities, right? What are your new superhero strengths? What are the new whys that make you cry? So I'm going to share this spreadsheet or this worksheet, same as before. Make a copy if you want to play around and edit it and make it your own. Okay. Let me share my screen so that we're all on the same page again. And I'm just going to talk about it for a minute, because then when you root into your why that makes you cry, you have more inclination to keep moving, because it's hard the day I got let go to again choose to seek comfort in action. And nobody told me that framework, but now I try to inspire others because I learned it. And I'm like, if I could inspire one more person the next time anything happens, it could be anything, right? It could be good or bad or ugly. But like, if you choose to seek comfort in action, you can create what she said, the inertia, the momentum, the snowball effect. And if you have a deep enough rooted why, that is going to keep you focused. So for me, I mean, it's kind of personal, but we had just invested in my grandparents' home in Indiana in 2023. And I like laugh and roll my eyes about it now because we bought it dirt cheap. It's sitting on top of the University of Notre Dame. I'm from South Bend. If I don't even know if where everybody is in the world here, but like in general, I went to college and I'm from here, and it's my grandparents' home, and they still had carpet in the kitchen. Okay. They still had their original appliances. It wasn't that, it was they needed a new roof and we needed new windows, like no questions asked. So I decided go all in. I went all in on a renovation I didn't have the money for, I couldn't afford. And we were like, oh, cool, cash out, refinance this house, whatever, with my job that they ripped from me, middle of renovation, walls open. We couldn't have faked an appraisal if we wanted. Like it was brutal. It's still brutal. Okay. And I'm just like, what? So my why, obviously, if I have kids, like, your why is going to be your kids, your why is going to be things like that. But like in this moment, it was literally bigger than this. It was like how my why became this home. And now we're trying to sell it, and it's still my why. Because again, you need to fail forward. Like Marina was saying at the beginning, like we need to be comfortable failing forward and getting like knowing that you can reinvent yourself 100 times in a month, 100 times in your lifetime. You don't get just one pass at reinventing yourself. So the house aside, it was literally this anchor of a why. I mean, yeah, I'm the breadwinner of the family. How do I keep the roof on our heads? How? But it in that moment, it became this house. And when you have your why as a picture in front of your computer screen or on your whiteboard that's next to me, or literally like rooted into you, that is what's going to help you keep that momentum and that inertia going. So again, this activity, the way I learned how to do it is you ask yourself 7 times, what is your why? Because surface level, it might be your kids or your grandparents' home. But if you keep asking that question, you're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper because you keep having to answer the same question. You're like, this is a little ridiculous. And then it ultimately, it brings you to a point that's you're like, it could be, in not a bad way, but like it could be fear of this, or it could be whatever. So ask yourself why 7 times, and it should make you cry. And you're going to root this is a good activity to do again with a team, but also every couple of years for you as an individual.
Fantastic, Kristen. I have to say just real quick about that why. This is a really wonderful worksheet. And, anybody follows Simon Sinek, he talks about why a lot. And he says your why is the thing you give to the world. That's another way to look at it. So when you dig deep, like you've provided for us, it looks like that's something you can leverage, as another superhero aspect of you, like your mission, and something really unique to you. So thanks for those tools.
Yes, I love it. So we talk a lot about, reinventing, right? And like how to keep moving forward. How do you reinvent yourself in your job? How do you reinvent yourself as a translator, interpreter? Like how do you outsmart AI? How do you leverage AI? Like everything, if you're in the industry, everything in the industry, but if you're not, it's all applicable. Like how do you reinvent yourself in your job and or when things happen and or because you're bored, right? Like I love change. Do you guys love change or hate change? Like right change? Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Okay. Yes. 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 I know my neighbor was like decided to tell me she hates change. Why am I doing so and such and such? Because she hates change, and it kind of stuck in me a couple. Thank you. Yeah. Put it in the chat. Love it or hate it. It stuck in me because I get it. Like how can I teach? This is rhetorical. Like, how can I learn how to teach others how to, even if you're change adverse, how to reset your mindset to welcome change and see change as an opportunity rather than a threat, right? So when we see things as an opportunity, did you know that fear and anxiousness are the same like chemical response as in your body as excitement? So it's like scientifically proven, like physiologically, the response in your body is to fear and excitement to anxiousness are the exact same. I mean, there's only so many things happening in our body, right? But it's the mindset and the association to what we attach to that thing that makes it, whether it's scary or exciting. So when we can look at something like change broadly as exciting or as an opportunity, we can convince ourselves to stop fearing it so much. And ultimately, it's really, really one of these things in order to reinvent ourselves that it does feel scary to jump. It does feel scary to get pushed, right? Because you're like, oh, where's my life raft? Where's my parachute? Right. But yes, everyone is saying in the chat, I love this, you guys, to change. I rearrange my house all the time. Me too. We should talk. Mercy. Just because I literally just said something about that this morning. Yes. Okay. Continuous learning, always be learning. Like, I love it. So those of us here, we are change agents, right? So we have a responsibility to go out there and inspire others to know that, like, how to disassociate fear with change and to reassociate change with joy or excitement. And then what are the steps that this takes? Anna, I will talk to you later. Thank you so much for coming here. So I have another worksheet. It's not death by worksheets. It's just, it's thinking about a webinar and not providing slides, right? And I feel like, well, maybe it is death by worksheets because whoever wins the book, and I still don't know how it's going to work, stay till the end. That's your chance. The book is like half worksheets because when I was writing something, I was like, okay, well, how do I teach while I am writing, right? And so that's kind of where this concept of worksheets came from. We've talked broadly about our why that makes us cry, rooting in our superhero strengths, leaning in, and also how to get out of our own way. But like there's this broad concept then of like how to tackle imposter syndrome, because who has it in them to get fired as a VP of sales and still write a book, be a better sales leader? That always makes me laugh. I refuse to think about the narrative in a way that wasn't like, this is all happening for me. And so much of this, you guys, is the mindset. So much, I have a really strong coach I pay money for in the background who's been there, done that, and is helping me. So this is why I love communities like this. I have one of my own where we get together once a week and we talk about things in our business that aren't working, sales strategies for moving the needle. And like broadly speaking, this personal branding concept I shared at the beginning, like how do we keep reinventing ourselves every day, every week, which is why this topic and this resume really resonated with me. And so then you look at like imposter syndrome. I mean, who here has had it, right? I have imposter syndrome. And to root in a definition, it makes you feel like a fraud, something that makes you feel like a fraud and it stops you in its tracks. And again, there's this whole concept of like taking action is the antidote to getting over yourself and realizing that like nobody's even paying attention anyway. Nobody's thinking about you. They're only thinking about themselves, right? And so how to take one tiny step in front of the other and know that failure is part of the process. When I was launching my own business, April 13th at 10 a.m. in the morning, right? I was like, what that looked like that day was so different than what it looked like 2 months later, than was so different than what it looked like 6 months later, because I would win, I would earn the respect or earn the right to like work on with a client. They would give me a contract and I would like the work. I would thrive in the work, or I would be like, nah, I can do the work, but I don't really like it. And so you're constantly figuring out whether you're a translator or an entrepreneur. Well, a translator is an entrepreneur. So like no matter like what role or spectrum you play, right? A business owner, a salesperson, anywhere in the spectrum, it's like do more of what you like, right? Even in the world of LSPs, right? Even when I was partnered with Ignacio at Lionbridge, and we both moved on to, he's still there, which is amazing. But he was like pestering me for months, pestering sales, like respectfully. Somebody call on this vertical. Somebody help us with this vertical. We have so much expertise in the vertical, but nobody really wants to do it. And it took me leaving Lionbridge for a year and coming back when I was like, okay, this is like, Ignacio is an amazing production operation counterpart. Satu knows all about that. We did a LinkedIn Live about that. So Ignacio is an amazing production counterpart. I'm going to like lean into what he's saying and I'm going to go after this thing. And we killed this vertical like gangbusters, because it just took getting out of your own way, realizing that like, I mean, there's tons of competition everywhere, but you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other. We failed forward in the initiative. We tried a bunch of things. They didn't work. We refined the process. And that is all about, okay, this last worksheet. Oh, maybe the last one. I'm conscious of time here. Is like action, right? Taking action. What steps and strategies do you have in place to really be able to take action? So, in the case that I was just explaining, this vertical we ended up dominating for the last couple of years I was there, it's like, what is the goal? What is the objective? What is the actionable steps? I think now you guys all have the worksheet, so I'll just keep talking. Like this is like a well-oiled machine now. I love it. So come up with a plan, right? We've all heard of SMART goals. You make them specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Come up with a plan in order to take action, because every single day things are going to happen to us, and we need to flip that narrative into things happening for us. Every single day we're going to feel this anxiousness, and we're going to tell our mind that it's the same physiological response, and we're going to decouple our emotional response to this fear of change, which nobody here has, right? But like people out there in the world, trust me, they fear change. And so we're going to decouple this emotional negative response and associate change being failing. Some people consider it failing, like failing forward through this change and adapting us to be better, because we're continuously learning. This group loves to learn, right? So we're learning and we're adapting, and now we're associating joy or excitement with this change. And we have a why that makes us cry. And now we have an action plan, right? Because if you have the steps needed to take to create an action plan, then and you have a community like this that you can lean on. Now you have the steps to basically, accomplish anything you want. Write a book in 3 months, talk on stages, increase your thought leadership, have better internal executive presence, like whatever that thing is for you. If you're so bold, I know a few people here are working on some exciting things because I talked to you. So share in the chat if you are so bold, what it is that you want to work on or what it is that you are working on. And that will inspire others to take these strategies and do this with that. And then Marina is saying she has a WhatsApp group coming. That's amazing.
Yeah, I ran a poll. All of these Reinvent Yourself webinars and offerings in my newsletter really bubbled up for a need of like close conversations. So the vote went out and some wanted Slack, some wanted Facebook, but majority wanted WhatsApp. So that's coming. So everybody join when I get that posted. I'll reach out to everybody in this meeting.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I too, it's kind of funny because everybody wants something different, right? Yeah, I have a Facebook group and I've just constantly been trying to reinvent what my group looks like because we have a pay to play, but then there's free content because I love giving everything away for free. So it's kind of like what platform does that live in and like how do we do that? So I'll be interested in your WhatsApp group and how that works.
Awesome.
Okay, transforming my thought process for finding my next job. Yes, I mean, one thing I love to do is help people lead beyond their role. This is like the teaser for my next book, right? It's like lead beyond your role and reinvent yourself and climb the corporate ladder. Or like I say corporate ladder, but it might not be corporate, right? But it's like how to just do the next thing. Because I saw this job posting the other day from somebody in my network and I was just looking at it and it was so clever. And at the bottom, it said, I should snip it. It said women and minorities are least likely to apply for jobs that they don't meet all of the criteria on this job. So this is the job posting for a VP of demand generation or something. And I'm just looking, I'm not looking for a new job. I'm just looking at it because Natalie Kelly shared it. Okay. I'm looking at this thing and at the bottom, it says in the job description, it says women and minorities are least likely, did you know, to apply for this job if they don't meet all the criteria. Yet if this job excites you, reach out to us anyway, submit your resume anyway. And it gives me the chills because it is true, right? And like, how do you lean into your superhero strengths and like find a connection maybe at that company who might know you or might know of you through somebody who you can get your resume on somebody else's desk and maybe get you an interview and maybe talk through why, no, I don't have all the criteria or qualifications, but this is what I do have. And I'm willing to learn. I'm always learning, right? And how can I get better? Let's, for the sake of everything, like, let's make sure we have time for questions. And Marina, any thoughts from you? But
I think this is all going fabulously and covering all the points. And I think all your go-to steps, staying organized. And were you going to talk about motivation at some point? What's your go-to method? And you have many methods and love you for that. But to stay motivated during challenging times, can you talk about that?
Yeah. My two biggest ones, and I love this, right? Writing collaborative on the community, I can't speak, writing collaborative articles. So community and organized. Like these two things will immensely help. So joining Marina's WhatsApp group, right? And like not just being there. Thank you, everybody. And I get it. People had to leave early and not everybody can have cameras on. But thank you for having your cameras on and playing today and like showing up and smiling and nodding and like sharing in the chat. Because that is the community, right? That she has so meticulously curated. And if you haven't yet, make sure your LinkedIn URL is in the chat, or pop it in the chat again for people who might not have seen it, right? So that you really can collaborate, because community is so dang important. In fact, on my LinkedIn URL right now, it says I'm a community builder, because it has come to my attention, as I mentioned earlier, that one of my superhero strengths is bringing people together. And to have a community, I had just invested in coaching, and that came with a community. And that was the community I leaned all the way into on April 17th, 2023, was to help me move forward. Which is why now Marina has this incredible community. I have a community. I've met people along the way. I've worked with people, and we bring everybody together, right? Get organized is so important. It is easy to have squirrel brain during the workday, like a Slack notification here. I say on stages, like, we are bombarded by notifications, right? Like, it is coming to us left, right, and center. Our phones, everything over here. But what is your game plan?
Amazing, amazing. Well, we're getting close to the Q&A time. Did we cover everything? My gosh, you just gave us this huge amount of information, inspiration, and motivation. Thanks so much, Kristin.
Thank you. Yeah,
Take
from
a
my
breath.
perspective, we're good. I mean, what are the questions? And
hey, Kristin. Hey, Marina. Hi, everyone. If nobody else
Satu, go for it, Satu.
to ask, I always ask the same question to many kinds of people, and Kristin, to you, with everything you do, how do you control the time? Like, okay, you reinvent yourself. That's very intense as an activity. But how do you control the time that you spend on it so that you don't burn yourself out while doing it?
oh, great question. I think it's something that's come to light for me because I did take another corporate job, and I took it because I really had to get my ego out of my way. I mentioned, if you guys were here from the beginning, I mentioned the Indiana house. It's physically draining me. And so I had to do something that was right. And I was already consulting my now company, and I loved the leader. He was a great leader. So I was like, okay, if you're really serious about wanting to hire me, because he only asked me every day, I was like, I'll take this job. And so it's given me this perspective of how to continue to push for reinvention while I have this job, because I realized it's one thing to be able to reinvent yourself when you work for yourself, and it's another thing to do it while you're doing another job. And it's really hard. To your point of burnout, it's really hard when you have a W-2 and the Slack messages and the notifications and the responsibility and the accountability to show up and over deliver for your job. What does reinvention look like? But for me, it's rooted in, because now I have the experience of both sides, right? It is rooted in fulfillment. I've always heard this word, and I always thought it was fake news. Like, oh, okay, like, I'm fulfilled too. I get the chills. I have never been more fulfilled than when I was working on my book and releasing it to the world, and the framework in which I learned to write it, and like how if this book only helps one person, it will have all been worth it, right? And so helping others is truly, as corny as it sounds, how you receive massive fulfillment. Doing all of this free stuff, right? And having, the time, finding the time and the bandwidth to do it, despite raising a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, despite all of the chaos I have going on in my personal life, like figuring out how that works for you. So I don't have a magic answer for everybody broadly, right? But I can talk to you more one-to-one because I love you, and I'll talk to anybody one-to-one. But the reality is, you'll find so much immense fulfillment when you're giving to others your expertise and your superhero strengths. It won't feel like work. And and that's why they say you'll never work another day in your life. Do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life, because it doesn't feel like work sometimes having to stay up till 10. Now I have to stay up till 10 p.m. sometimes working after my kids are in bed and all the things, where I didn't have to do that as an entrepreneur, but now I'm balancing two things. It still doesn't feel like work. So lean into your strengths and give the world your expertise, and that's how you avoid burnout. Which, yeah, go ahead.
And really quick, what's really fascinating about that, when you do what you love and you've got this like internal mission of doing something to help others, that's very attractive. And just imagine, I know so many people who have been heads down 20 years, not saying a peep because they're following the corporate guidelines of not posting anything. And look what happens when they get laid off. They're invisible. That just breaks my heart. You think about it. So we've been discouraged in corporate life to do anything outside of it. And then when they leave you out to dry, what happens? So follow your passion, follow Kristin, follow my reinvention things, create your personal brand. It can be anything, but it's something that is from your why, and you start to become visible. You get stronger. Your superhero makes you more strong and attractive, and you can get better jobs. And we're going to get through all of this. So just some ideas on that.
Yeah. Thank you. And let's address the next question. And I put my calendar link in the chat. If anyone wants a free call, obviously it's free. I'm just saying it's free. Like a free call, that link is only open on Fridays. This is also how I am managing my things right now. Okay. So you're going to have to wedge yourself in respectfully to a Friday in the coming weeks. But anybody is open to finding more time with me if you want to explore the burnout question or your why or your superhero strengths or, right? And Dolores, my friend, how do you recommend to address language companies as freelancers? Do you want to come off mute and just give the rest of us more context on that? It's pretty.
Hi, Kristin. Hi, Marin. Happy to be here. Thanks for this conversation, for your talk. Well, I think that I already asked you this question some time ago, but I was wondering if you have any like a tip or recommendation with all this transformation and evolution that we are all experiencing all around the world. What would you recommend us to do just in a different way, because everything that worked in the past is not working right now?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's constant reinvention, right? At the ground level. Like, okay, so Dolores has an amazing podcast. Why don't you pop your podcast link? If I would have thought of it, I would have found it, or maybe Marina can find it real quick since I'm addressing your question. But she has an amazing podcast. So first and foremost, I would ask everyone to support her podcast, listen to it, and maybe she's looking for more guests still. But you know what? I think in this case, it's sales. This is kind of so many translators, interpreters, and entrepreneurs are accidental salespeople. Entrepreneurs, did I say that? Like, we're all accidental salespeople. My sister is an attorney and she's an accidental salesperson, right? Because like an attorney has to stand up there and fight, or sit behind their computer and fight for one thing or another, influence somebody to their opinion, that their opinion matters, while meeting the needs on the ground. And I was just saying this morning that like salespeople I have informal on the job training over the past 20 years to learn how to build a pipeline for my entrepreneur business or build a pipeline at my day job, right? But seller's mindset is something I get brought in to coach on, and that I coach on in my community. Companies, LSPs were bringing me in while I was a consultant to coach specifically their project teams, their project management team, their operation teams on sellers' mindsets. Because a lot of the smaller vendors don't have salespeople, yet everybody is in sales and service. So everybody on the ground level, including a freelancer, is in sales and obviously service. So how do we constantly like get our names out there? And I too, as I know all of you, are bombarded in DMs on LinkedIn, blind emails. Like, hey, like I provide all these services, reach out. I really think you need to approach it the way like the way that I've learned how to approach all sales. And so I think it has to be more relationship based, and it just takes a minute longer, right? So when you're asking people to connect on LinkedIn, I would always send a note. You know, it says suggest to add a note. I would always say I'd be honored to connect. And there's a few reasons why. One reason is because those people, do you guys have time to stay? I just realized we're over. Yeah, okay.
Stay, everybody who can. Keep going.
I have like 10 minutes. Okay. So people, when you say I'd be honored to connect with your connection request, 8 times out of 10, they're going to reply back to you, which is cool. It starts a conversation naturally. But more importantly, they're going to pop up in your DMs. You'll see when somebody connected you, because that message then pops up in your DMs. I would share it, but I'm not in that frame to share my LinkedIn right now. But it's like, so always connect with somebody. I'd be honored to connect, right? And I'm not going to go there right now, but Stefan has tons of content and free masterclasses on like mastering LinkedIn. But as it relates to you, Dolores, and others, I'd be honored to connect and then build that relationship. Ask my ninja strategy that works, no matter if I'm selling, speaking, podcasts. Well, how do I get onto podcasts? How do I find a localization business? My number one strategy is, are you open to a call? And yes, this is totally different probably than how translators historically have got themselves into working for vendors. But are you open to a call, and actually have a call with them before doing what so many people do wrongly, which is selling in the chat, right? So like, gone are the days, and maybe your strategy was different, but what I see a lot is gone are the days of, hey, we're this vendor and we provide these rates and this is da 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 da. You know what? Especially at these smaller, $10 million vendors and smaller, which isn't that small, right? But like in $10 million in the long tail of vendors, they are continuously going back to the resources they have relationships with. So we were at an all hands in Mexico, and just like a lot of LSPs, Language Network was founded by a translator sitting at her kitchen table. Literally, it's Jordan's mom, right? And then Jordan and his sister bought the company officially from their parents 5 years ago. But their parents were in Mexico with us, and she's so cute. Oh my gosh, she's so cute, and she's standing up there just telling us the story of her business and all of these things. And I'm sitting at a table with like the scheduling team for Interps, and she's talking about, like, she's giving stories about specific people, right? And then 40 years later, the interpretation team is like, oh my gosh, we still work with that vendor. We still give that translator, that interpreter, that one business, right? And so I think in the whole like evolution of AI, right? Like, it's coming back to the human side. We're going to come back to the human side. So it's a long way of saying you differentiate yourself, because all salespeople, you too, have to differentiate yourself from everybody else. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. Write that in the chat. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, and they're buying from you, your translation services. And so they have to like you and trust you.